Good afternoon. My name's Andrew Vires. Today I'm going to be speaking to you about a hobby called wrestling. During my speech, I'm going to cover the history of wrestling, some famous wrestlers that you might know, as well as why I love the sport. Did you know that wrestling is the oldest sport in the world? Some wrestling artifacts have dated all the way back to 2600 BC. Specifically, the bronze statue of wrestlers shown on this slide was dug up near Baghdad, Iraq, and scientists have dated it all the way back to 2600 BC. That statue is now on display in the Iraqi museum that is in Baghdad. Wrestling was the most popular event in ancient Greek games and was added to the Olympics in 708 BC. The Olympic wrestling winners have been recorded ever since 708 BC. Some other artifacts have been found in Egyptian wall art, and also on display on this slide is a statue in Italy. Some famous wrestlers that you might know. So obviously, probably almost everyone knows who Kurt Angle is. For those of you that don't, he's a very famous WWE wrestler. Prior to WWE, he was actually an Olympic gold medalist. But some of the people that you may not know that are famous who used to wrestle are presidents like George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, some actors like Tom Cruise, Robin Williams, or Chris Pratt. They all wrestled in their youth. One of the best known generals who fought in both world wars, General Patton, used to wrestle. And former top officer of the Marine Corps, General Krulak, who left a lasting imprint with his philosophy on warfighting, also wrestled in his youth. But probably one of the most famous people who used to wrestle that probably no one knows is Plato. Plato was actually given, the name Plato was actually given to him as a nickname for broad shoulders because of how successful he was in wrestling. It's why I love the sport. It teaches a lot of discipline within children and young adults, whether that be discipline with diet or just competing and sticking to something. It also teaches young kids how to cope with failure. Unlike any other sport, wrestling is a team sport, but it's also an individual sport. So, unlike basketball, if you lose, you can't blame it on the point guard or the center. You're the only one out on the mat. If you lose, it's because of something that you did. So you have to learn to cope with that failure. And at the end of the match, you have to stand there while the ref holds up the other opponent's hand and lets everyone know that he won. So as a young adult, you have to learn how to cope with failure and deal with it and overcome it. Wrestling also creates a great deal of pride for our youth. So the opposite of failure is on the winning side. Kids gain a lot of pride when they get their hand held up in front of a crowd and everyone knows that they won because they did it. No one else, they did. Health and mental strength. Obviously health because of dieting, just being physically active helps. But the mental strength with the failure, the pride, the discipline, how it builds you mentally, not only as an athlete, but as a person, and just prepares our youth for the world outside of the sport of wrestling is just amazing. Watching young kids grow into young adults, it's awesome. So, in summary, what I talked about in my speech today was a little bit of the history of wrestling, some famous wrestlers, to include Plato, and why I love the sport. Here's a slide with some of the resources that I used for this speech. And I want to thank you guys for listening. Again, my name is Andrew Vires, and here is my contact information if you need to contact me. Thank you.